Whoa, okay. New video. So if I have this picture and I want to use the clone stamp, let's say I want to add something somewhere.
Add Kimberly's face.
What's that?
You clone Kimberly's face.
Sure, I could add multiple of her faces. So if I have her face, if I have anyone's face, in fact, I could simply move them. I could add all three, depending on whatever I want to do. So your tool over here is the shortcut is S. Okay, so you just tap the S, and that's the clone stamp tool, so just remember stamp. And then you have the same cursors you have with any other brush, right? So you can increase that or decrease that with your bracket tools. And then I could get Kimberly's, I could get whoever's face here, or I could take everyone's face. But let's imagine I just want to copy an eyeball for some reason. Okay, so if I just want to grab an eyeball, I use the clone stamp tool. And then here's the key thing you got to do. With one hand, you depress the Alt button, so you hold down the Alt button, and then it turns into like a little target. Do you see that up there? Everybody sees that? Okay, then you left click while that target still is there. So you're holding the Alt key, and then you left click the target button. Then watch what happens. I'm not clicking Alt anymore. I've let go of Alt, but if I move this over, okay, the eye follows it. Now what's really interesting, of course, if you only click that once, okay, it sometimes will have less opacity. Then notice I'm going around, and what am I seeing here? Yeah, so notice, and I'm not clicking or anything, it's still got the target over here. Okay, so what's really interesting is if I want to, for instance, put some of this like background, this wall, for instance, now it's got an eyeball on it. Okay, but if I wanted to put this wall to some degree like over this sign or something, it's going to take me a little while, but what I could do is I could use the clone stamp, hold down Alt, click the wall, and I could make it, let's say, a little bit bigger because it's got that target area. And now what I could do is line it up and say, okay. Yeah, so I can start, and obviously I'd want to cut her out or something, but I can basically replace it. Now, watch what happens, though, if I'm like, oh, this is so great, ooh, you know, and then it's like, oh, no. Okay, because remember, it's only selecting from that area, so what I'd want to make sure I do is go back to that area and then keep painting, and then go back and paint, depending on what I want to do back there, okay? And that's going to allow me to move things around the image that already exists. Now, when this is really cool, because some of you are saying, well, I want to see this being really cool, then what I can do is go to a different picture or a different layer and select that. So if I come over here, let's see. Notice I'm on this layer, but I'm on a totally different Photoshop layer, and I can suddenly bring into this picture what's over in that other picture. So that's what's really cool about it, is you don't need to have it open necessarily on that image layer, right? It can be in a different Photoshop file, and you've clone stamped it from that file with your Alt click, and then you're bringing it into the new file. Now, I would really caution you that when you do this, the Fool is not going to create a new layer, and you're just going to try to place it on there. Okay, and oh, I ran out of returns, so let me go. No. So what you want to do is, if you stamp anything, I've ruined this picture, right? Because I've only done this on my background. I was foolish. What I should have done is started a new layer, and then maybe I, select his face, go onto my new layer, and I have to make sure I'm on my background when I select. I just messed that up. Alt, select, go to my new layer, and then add this. Okay. Now, if I click off this background layer, it's now on this new layer with just his head. So I can affect that however I want. Don't stamp something and then put it on your permanent layer, because that's going to ruin that look, right? You've ruined that layer forever. So always create new layers. It gives you a lot of latitude here also, because imagine if I want Odell here, if I want to make this head that's floating in the wind, which is kind of odd, but if I want to make this a different tone, for instance, what I could do now is just affect that one layer versus affecting the whole thing. So on that one layer, for instance, I could make him black and white. That'd be a weird picture. So he's like this sad head in the clouds. Okay, or I could move him using my move tool because it's just on that layer. Okay, I can move him around. I can just adjust him because he's on his own layer. Whee! Okay, I can make his layer bigger or smaller. So one of the keys, right, is that we're always putting new images. So for instance, if you look at Vanessa's over here, right, if she has, all those logos should be on their own layers, or all of her players should be on their own layers, because you can adjust them much more easily. If you try to throw this all into one layer, it's going to be a disaster, okay, every single time. So that's the clone stamp. That's the basic overview, plus some kind of layer knowledge that you might need to have.